Well, now we're going to try something a little bit different here. I'm going to read from a book that I'm reading called Doc Holliday, The Life and Legend by Gary L. Roberts. Absolutely fascinating. It's really re-inspiring me to jump back full force into doing Legends of the Old West, the Games Workshop game. This book, what's really great about it is about 500 pages long, and it really brings to life the times that these men lived in. It doesn't just talk about Doc Holliday. It talks about the Earps as well. You can't tell Doc's story without eventually deeply involving them. It's very interesting, actually, to see Doc's trajectory before he finally meets up with the Earps. The section I'm going to read to you is Chapter 7, the Fremont Street Fiasco. I'm going to just read a couple pages of it. The part that basically opens up the OK Corral, the story of what happened beforehand. Now, if you've seen the movie Tombstone, which is absolutely one of my favorites, and it remains to be one of my favorites, even though it's completely and totally wrong. They do things that are very dramatic, and the real story of the OK Corral and the things that led to it are actually much more interesting. But you could have made an entire movie out of just a few days worth of incidents here, and so obviously they had to shorten it for the film, and they made it a bit more dramatic. They made Ike Clanton a mad dog that the Earps were really concerned about. As it turns out, until the OK Corral, these guys weren't actually at all concerned about Ike Clanton, as you will soon see. Chapter 7, The Fremont Street Fiasco. Damon did no more for Pythias than Holliday did for Wyatt Earp. Bat Masterson, Human Life Magazine, 1907. Near 8 o'clock on the morning of October 26, 1881, Ike Clanton picked up the pistol and rifle he had left at the West End Corral, expecting to meet Doc Holliday on the street. In fact, he began to roam the streets looking for Doc or for any of the Earps, as he made clear to anyone who would listen. Only a few minutes after leaving the West End Corral, he ran into Ned Boyle, a bartender at the Oriental. He said that as soon as the Earps and Doc Holliday showed themselves on the street, the ball would open, and that they would have to fight. Boyle recalled later. Boyle saw that Ike had retrieved his weapons and hurried off to Wyatt Earp's house to warn him. Wyatt listened, then went back to sleep. In the meantime, Ike had moved on to Julius A. Kelly's ornate wine house, where Kelly overheard him talking to the bartender, Joe Stump, about the previous night's difficulties. Kelly asked him what the trouble was, and Clinton told him that the Earps and Holliday had insulted him the night before, when he was not armed, but that he was armed now, and that they would have to fight on sight. Kelly warned him against further talk, because he believed the Earps would fight if pushed. Ike continued his tour of the saloons, leaving a flood of rumors in his wake. Eventually, there were enough of them that Officer A.G. Bronk woke up Virgil and told him there was liable to be hell. Virgil thanked him, then rolled over and went back to sleep. The Earps simply did not take Ike Clanton seriously. He was a blowhard and a braggart, and they fully expected that he would eventually crash, and that on awakening, with a hangover, the fight talk would wilt. However, Ike was still going at noon when he told R.F. Hafford that the Earps and Holliday would have to fight. Hafford also warned him that he'd better go home. Instead, he found his way to Fly's boarding house looking for Doc, who was still asleep. Molly Fly found Kate in the rear gallery of the photographic studio behind the boarding house looking at pictures and told her that Clinton, fully armed, was asking about Doc. Kate went back to Doc's room and woke him to tell him. Doc sat up on the side of the bed and responded, "If God lets me live long enough to get my clothes on, he shall see me." At about the same time, Virgil finally got up and started downtown. He was scarcely out of the house when Daniel Lynch, a young house painter, caught up with him and said, "Look out for Clanton. He's on the prowl and allows to kill you on sight." Next, Virgil met his brothers, Morgan and James, who asked if he had seen Clanton, explaining, "He's got a Winchester rifle and a six-shooter on and threatens to kill us all on sight." These warnings would not be the last threats reported to Virgil, but they were sufficient to give a new seriousness to the situation. In the meantime, Wyatt walked into the Oriental to be told by Harry Jones, an attorney that Clinton was looking for. You boys. Wyatt wearily and nonchalantly said, I will go down and find him and see what he wants. On his way out of the saloon, Wyatt ran into Virgil and Morgan. They told each other what they had heard, then split up to look for Ike, with Wyatt walking down Allen Street and Morgan and Virgil proceeding up Fremont. In the meantime, Mayor John P. Clum passed Ike on the corner of 4th and Fremont. Hello, Ike. Any new war? He asked innocently. A few steps further on, Clum met Charles Shibble, who was in town from Tucson, and struck up a conversation with him. As they spoke, they saw Virgil and Morgan turn onto 4th Street, both armed. What does that mean? Shibble asked. Looks like real trouble, Clum answered. They watched as the two Earps approached Ike, who had moved into an alleyway off 4th. He was watching Wyatt, who was coming down 4th from the opposite direction off Allen. Virgil recalled what happened next. I found Ike Clanton on 4th Street, between Fremont and Allen, with a Winchester rifle in his hand, and a 6-shooter stuck down in his breeches. I walked up and grabbed the rifle in my left hand. He let loose and started to draw his 6-shooter. I hit him over the head with mine and knocked him to his knees, and took his 6-shooter from him. I asked him if he was hunting for me. He said he was, and if he had seen me a second sooner, he would have killed me. I arrested Ike for carrying firearms, I believe was the charge, inside city limits. Virgil was not taking Ike seriously enough. Instead of putting him in jail to sleep off his drunkenness and charging him with some more serious offense, he hauled him off to Judge A.O. Wallace's court on a simple weapons charge, expecting that a fine and a headache received in the buffaloing would get Ike's attention sufficiently to sober him up. He miscalculated. Wallace was not at the courtroom, and Virgil went to look for him, leaving Clanton in the charge of Morgan. At that point, Wallace came in, followed by Reason J. Campbell, a deputy sheriff and clerk of the Cochise County Board of Supervisors. A crowd of curiosity seekers soon packed the little courtroom, and they were not disappointed. Wyatt sat down near Morgan, who held Clinton's rifle and pistol. Clinton's defiance had not withered. He was soon in a heated exchange with Morgan. You fellows haven't given me any show at all today, he thundered. You've treated me like a dog, Clinton erupted. Fight is my racket, and all I want is 4 feet of ground. Then turning on Morgan, he said, if you fellows had been a second later, I would have furnished the coroner's inquest for the town. He threatened, I will get even with all of you for this. If I had a 6-shooter now, I would make a fight with all of you. Morgan, reacting by angrily offering Ike his revolver, saying, Here, take this. You can have all the show you want right now. At that point, the crowd scattered. One eyewitness said, You should have seen that crowd light out just then. In less than half a minute, everybody was about a block away. I ran with the crowd, but as no shooting was heard in a short time, we all went back again, when we found out that Ike had refused to take the gun. But I tell you, pard, that was the worst scared crowd I ever saw. Actually, Ike did jump up, but before he could grab the pistol, Deputy Sheriff Campbell pushed him into a chair. Wyatt had heard and seen enough. He yelled at Clinton, You have threatened my life 2 or 3 times, and I have the best evidence to prove it, and I want this thing stopped. Then he thundered, You cattle-thieving son of a bitch, and you know I know you're a cattle-thieving son of a bitch. You threatened my life enough, and you've got to fight. He then turned and left the courtroom in a rage. As he walked out, Wyatt almost collided with Tom McClowry, who was rushing to see what kind of mess Ike had gotten himself into. Earp snapped at McClowry, and McClowry fired back. If you want to fight, I will fight you anywhere. Are you healed? Right here? Right now? Earp quickly replied. In the same instant, Wyatt slapped him, jerked his own pistol, and knocked Tom to the ground with it. He stormed away, muttering, I could kill the son of a bitch, while McClowry struggled to regain his feet and fumbled to find his silver hatband, which had been knocked off when Earp struck him. Tom had had enough. Still groggy, he made his way to the Capitol Saloon and deposited his pistol behind the bar. Wyatt claimed later, I was tired of being threatened by Ike Clanton and his gang, and believed from their movements that they intended to assassinate me at the first chance they had, and I thought that if I had to fight for my life with them, I'd better make them face me in an open fight. That was post-fight rationalization. At the moment, the usually calm Wyatt Earp had lost control in a fit of anger. Still steaming, Wyatt walked to Hafford's corner at Allen and 4th Street, bought himself a cigar, and stood there, puffing away to regain his composure after a rare display of emotion. So there you have it. There's a short clip from the book. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed putting together a little video of it, and I hope all of you enjoyed it. Please come back again to my wonderful world of gaming, where I'll probably show some games inspired by this book. Thank you.